Ron Paul's very dedicated supporters.
It all comes down to this basic question that human beings have for a long, long time been concerned about transforming their minds. Is there any way in which one's mind can be transformed? Or is it simply a process which is nothing more than a vicious circle? I could ask, why have you come here this afternoon? What were you looking for? Would it be too presumptuous of me to say that you were looking for help? That you hoped you would hear somebody who had something to say that would be of help and relevance to you as members of a world which is running into the most intense difficulty.
On screen.
We won't go back. You don't know what it's like in our universe. The Federation's gone. The Borg is everywhere. We're one of the last ships left, please. You've got to help us.
I'm sorry, there's no choice. If this works, everything will return to...
No, we won't go back!
Wrote the Constitution, they foresaw our country's evolution. They knew it wasn't perfect, so in Article 5 they explained how an amendment could be ratified.
I am continuing and I am increasing the search for every possible path to peace.
Maintain our strength in order to deter and defend against aggression, to preserve freedom and peace.
No one, friend or foe, should doubt our desire for peace.
The United States wants peace.
We seek peace. We strive for peace.
I pledged in my campaign for the presidency to end the war in a way that we could win the peace.
I still think we're going to do somehow. I think for that brown people have gone down no, I got to do your mom. That's right. That, I think, was just too much. You never your mom, no problem. I just want you to think big, Henry, for Christ's sake.
I respect your idealism. I share your concern for peace. I want peace as much as you do.
We cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun, that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud. Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
There
is no doubt Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Botulinum, VX, sarin, nerve agent.
Iraq and Al-Qaeda. Iraq and Al-Qaeda. Terrorism. Cyber attacks.
Nuclear program. Biological weapons.
Cruise missiles. Ballistic missiles.
Chemical and biological weapons.
Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
President Bush has said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Tony Blair has said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Donald Rumsfeld has said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Richard Butler has said they do. The United Nations has said they do. The experts have said they do. Iraq says they don't. You can choose who you want to believe. You can choose who you want to believe.
Says it can prove that Saddam Hussein does have weapons of mass destruction, claiming it has solid evidence.
The White House insisted again today it does have solid evidence that Saddam Hussein is hiding an arsenal of prohibited weapons.
They might fight dirty, using weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, or radioactive.
There are ties between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda.
Anthrax, smallpox.
Dirty bomb.
Dirty bomb.
Iraq-Al-Qaeda connection.
Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda share the same goal. They want to see, both of them want to see Americans dead.
The president essentially giving Saddam 48 hours to get out of Dodge. War now seems all but inevitable.
Short of a bullet to the back of his head or he leaves the country, war is inexorable.
Well, I think that's exactly right. War is inevitable, and it is approaching inexorably.
Is war with Iraq inevitable right now?
I think it's 95% inevitable. You, at this point, right now, tonight, don't see any other option but war. To you? I'm asking you, I'm asking.
I agree. I don't think there's a viable option for the administration at this point. We're way too far out front in this.
Send us over there, guys. Let's get on with it. Let's get it over with.
Showdown Iraq. If America goes to war, turn to MSNBC and the experts.
U.S. officials tell CNN. Bush officials says that analysts say.
Pentagon officials tell us. According to the U.S. himself.
U.S. officials say that U.S. officials here say, these officials here at the White House tell us.
I just pulled these two things out. I've laundered them so you can't really tell what I'm talking about.
Choice between love or fear. Some will just dig a hole in the ground and wait for the bombs to come. Stay lost, not found. I take a different approach. Stay on point with the most. A good MC is an even better host. For choice is simple, fear or love. Roll one up with the hippies or bust a cap with the thugs. Guess I'll be rolling up one with my homies, singing war no more, knocking on heaven's door. Forever never lonely, already won this game battle. You better check the score. We are blessed with a choice in this life. Free will to all, so don't get caught up in the trite. Tell warmongers to go fly a kite. The choice is yours, wrong or right. It is a choice between love or fear. It is a choice between love. So, if what we do in life echoes in eternity's light, then may our love for one another take flight this night. Now you don't know me and I don't know you, but I bet you got no ill will toward others, and you've been watching that lie they call the news. It is designed to give you the blues. What a crock. I came here to win, not lose, and through the information age I cruise. Let's use this web to connect us. Let the weapons of war just rust. Let's begin a new era, one built on trust. Choice is ours. Do we go big or do we go bust? It is a choice between love or fear. It is a choice between love or fear. It is a choice between love or fear.
didn't I? And I wanted a serious answer, but no, they were afraid. You can't handle the truth!
Just bang.
We just have 10 minutes this morning. It's a fairly informal discussion. We'll just kind of remind ourselves what's going to happen, who we're going to be talking to, and where they are, and what Chris has been up to and what he's doing. So, of course, this is where Chris is going to be calling us from, right here, the International Space Station. It's the size of a football field, and the astronauts live and work in these tin cans that are lined up right along the middle in kind of a T shape, with the T being at the back. And that volume that they live in, the 6 of them, is about equivalent to a 747. So they have quite a bit of room for the 6 of them to do their daily experiments and their work. But this is the man, the guy we get to chat with today. And these are great photos that show us where he's taking his awesome photos that we've been seeing in the news and on Twitter. This is the cupola. And the cupola is on the bottom of the space station. And so this pane of glass that's right here is parallel to the surface of the Earth. And then these other panes of glass, they go around in a 360-degree view, giving you a beautiful panoramic view of our planet. And of course, if you get close to the glass and look up, you can see the blackness of space, you can see the stars, and it just must be absolutely tremendous. Imagine what it's like to see with your own eyes. I'm a rookie astronaut. I've been training for about 3.5 years now, and I can't wait for my opportunity to go up there and just see this with my own eyes. I mean, the pictures are phenomenal. I can barely imagine what it's going to be like to see them for myself. Now, Chris is a special guy. This is somebody I've been following for a long time. I had the opportunity to meet Chris when I was in university on a few occasions, and he's the type of person who always takes time for you. If you have the opportunity to run into Chris, he'll be more than happy to spend a few minutes with you. I had some very specific and pointed questions about what it was like to be an astronaut and how I might find myself one day following in his footsteps. And Chris always put an effort into answering those questions for me. I was able to email him when I had questions about my degree program. I was trying to decide which one I was going to take. That's the Chris Hadfield I know. You know, a guy who's accomplished so much, but never forgets who he's doing it on behalf of. And so this is a great picture of Chris. He's achieved something great, and he's floating in space with a Canadian flag in the background, and I just think that's awesome. So in December, I just want to show you how he got there. In December, he was over in Kazakhstan, and this is where we launched the Russian Soyuz rocket out of. And this photo is taken of Chris. He's in his actual vehicle. That's the Soyuz vehicle that he flew up on. This is Chris on the back side of the picture, I guess at the top of the picture, if you will. And the photographer who took this photo was standing outside the capsule looking through the window on the right side of the capsule. And there's a window exactly opposite it right here on the left side. You can even see a head in the photo there looking into the capsule, just like the photographer is. And there's 3 people in the capsule. So here's Chris, and then here's the commander of the Russian Soyuz rocket, Roman Romanenko. And then Tom Marshburn is just right here at the bottom of the photo. It's just very dark. It's difficult to see. But Chris has some important responsibilities in the Soyuz vehicle. He's the left seater, which means he's essentially the co-pilot. And you can see he's operating some of the computer that's in front of him. This is where how you control the Soyuz rocket on the way to space. And this happened a few days before launch, what they call the fit check, where they actually have the astronauts get into the suit they're going to wear to go up to orbit. They crawl into the real vehicle through the tiny hatch at the top, lower themselves down, strap themselves in, make sure everything works. They run the vehicle through some tests. And then once that's all passed, they get out, and then they take that capsule and they put it on top of this rocket. And that capsule we just saw Chris sitting in is this portion of the rocket right here. And then a few days later, we light that and we send it into space. And I see Ozzy smiling in the front because she saw it with her own eyes. She was over there too. And it's just an incredible experience to see a rocket blast off. I mean, it's so powerful and so fast. And you're just like, man, that was the coolest thing I ever seen, but I wish it could come back around and do it again. And it happens so fast and it's gone. And when you get to space, by the time you get there, all you're left with is this gets blown away, the shroud, the white thing covering it. The rest of the rocket, the fuel's been expended, and you're just left with the tiny top part of the capsule. And then a few days later, you catch up to space station, and you join your crew. So in Chris's case, there were already 3 people there. There was another American and 2 Russians, and this is Chris's crew. So we have Oleg here, Yevgeny, and Kevin Ford, who's the commander right now. And he's the gentleman that Chris will take over from on March 14th when he takes command of the space station when Kevin Ford and his crew come back to Earth. So he joined this crew of 6. And someone sent me this photo, and I looked at it and I kind of chuckled, because aren't these guys too cool for school in this photo? And they are. I mean, it's a very serious job, and all those things. It's dangerous and it's challenging, and anything could go wrong in any given second. And we all know, all of us that work with Chris and the other people in the crew, we all know that they can handle all of those things. And if anyone can handle it, it's these guys. And there's a part of us that knows that they're like this picture, but these are the real guys I know. It's just a great bunch of human beings who are in space representing humanity right now. And I just think it's awesome how much effort they put into bringing space back for all of us to share in. I wanted to show you a few more photos before we get to talk with Captain Kirk coming up here. So we got to keep an eye on the time. We don't want to be late for that. Here's Chris working on basically payloads, so science experiments. This is the Milfy. It's a minus 80-degree freezer, so it's where we basically freeze our science experiments, stuff that needs to show up in space frozen and needs to come back to Earth frozen, and we can do it in this freezer. And luckily enough for the astronauts, we can also get ice cream back and forth to space in that freezer. Chris spends a lot of his day, 2 hours plus of his day, every day exercising. So either lifting weights in space, essentially, the equivalent of that. Of course, there's no weight, but mass in space, and running on a treadmill or using a bicycle. And this is important. This is important research. We're trying to figure out how to send humans back beyond low Earth orbit on really long duration missions and have them go to Mars for, let's say, in a 2-year mission and come back in good enough shape to get to Mars in good enough shape to work on the surface and have bones that are strong and muscles that are strong. So we're learning a lot about that. And here's a nice view of just inside the space station. This is the volume that Chris is working in. Here this is a cargo container. Basically, it's how we store stuff in space, because if you don't store it inside something, then it just floats all over and makes a huge mess. So we have all these containers. We call them CTBs. And here's Chris working on moving one around of some sort. Now, when Chris's mission is done, that tiny bit of the capsule will come back to Earth like this, underneath a parachute. But here's a reminder of where we're going to be seeing Chris from today. Orbiting our Earth, looking back at us right now, seeing these amazing things. And I love these photos that we get back from the astronauts that show us the extent of the Earth's atmosphere, how thin the Earth's atmosphere, that part that protects us from the harshness of space, that gives us water so we can grow crops, gives us air to breathe. And this is just such a unique perspective that's coming back to us from space. So are we still on time? Are we ready for the captain? So I'll just point out, we have the Canadian connection going on today, because right here is David St. Jacques, my counterpart.
Houston. Are you ready for the event?
I'm ready for the event.
Mr. Shatner, this is Mission Control, Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
I'm calling. This is Shatner. Do you hear me?
Mr. Shatner, this is the Space Research Vessel, ISS, in Earth orbit. And yes, I hear you loud and clear. How do you hear me? This is Chris Hadfield.
Chris, I hear you loud and clear. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so moved to be able to speak to you for this brief moment. So I want to ask you some questions that have some deep meaning to me. So let me start off right away. You're in the International Space Station, but you had to get there in a Russian vehicle. Are we, as America, fallen behind, or is this just a pause on our space program?
The space business is an extremely difficult one, and I think the best way to answer that question is to look at history. You know, we've never had regular access to space. We've had a space flight and then a landing, and then we review everything and make sure it's safe, and then we launch another one. And the shuttle was tremendously a successful vehicle, flying at 135 times. But it's not like in between flights we could just count on the next one. Every one was really much the max level of effort that we could do. And so it went from Mercury to Gemini to Apollo to Shuttle with many, many lulls in between. And the time it takes to build a new vehicle is quite long. So you could say we kind of lost our way in between every single launch, but in truth that's not how it works. What it takes is an enormous effort of will and technical know-how to build a spaceship, and then to be brave enough to launch one, because you risk lives every time you do. And we're just right now in between vehicles, much as we were after Mercury, after Gemini, after Apollo. We're just in the after shuttle era right now. But fortunately, because of international cooperation, we're not grounded. And this place is built by the world and very much put together with the United States as the foreman. And fortunately, we didn't have to abandon it as we did Skylab, because we didn't have a vehicle or cooperation. Because of cooperation with other countries, people are here living and working. And the United States will build another vehicle, and that will come up here also. So it's by no means a lost way. It's just a natural path.
I read that you have already volunteered to go on a Mars mission. Is that have any reality to it? And because of the nature of this brief time, let me add to that question. You volunteered to go, but isn't that a fearful operation? Isn't that fraught with such enormous difficulty and danger?
You've taken a lot of risks in your life as well, and it was a risk that I decided to take many, many years ago. Really, to accomplish anything worthwhile in life is going to take risk. And even if you decide to stay at home and sit at your kitchen table, eventually the ceiling will fall, or there'll be a hurricane or a tornado. You can't live a worthwhile life without taking risks. And some things are really worth directing your life towards and putting your life on the line for. Let me just say, between the real life exploits of the first astronauts and the visually fantasized and enlivened ones like you portrayed on Star Trek and so many other people have in literature, they inspire people like me to do things like this. And without that inspiration, and then without the technological capability that comes along with it, none of it would be possible. And I'm in a position to say that the risks are infinitely worthwhile when you look at the view that's just out these windows behind me and the things that lie just beyond. And yes, going to Mars is inevitable, just as sailing across the Atlantic or flying across the Atlantic or orbiting around the world or going to the moon. It's just a matter of when we figure out how. We put ourselves together enough. We take those visualized dreams and fantasies and turn them into reality, which is what we're doing here right now.
You have many degrees in mechanical engineering, and you must see the universe in terms of how extraordinary a mechanical engineering feat that is, and how mystifying it is because we know nothing. Do you find yourself in the space station observing, as a scientist, a part of it, removed from it, or are you able to see the unifying parts of it so that you become at one with the universe?
Luckily, I think, Bill, the answer is both. Most people, the highest they ever get is maybe to climb a tall hill or climb a mountain and look around, or even get in an airplane and start to see what lies beyond the normal two dimensions, the surface of the world of normal life. To have the opportunity to get as far away as we are here, and not only that, but to go around the world every 90 minutes. And you never saw it on stage while you were filming, but the view that they used to put in for us watching Star Trek of how the world looks out of Sulu and Chekhov's windows there, that's how the world looks. It's an enormous, wonderful, rolling earth below us. But all you have to do is flip yourself upside down, and suddenly the rest of the universe is right there at your feet, below you, and that's where the engineer in me, of course, is very much thinking about the ship and how we got here and the problems and the difficulties. But the human within me recognizes what we are in between. We've gone from climbing a hill, getting in an airplane, to now actually being right on the cusp of permanently leaving our planet, to everything else that exists. And I feel hugely connected to that. It's what was inspired in me as a kid, and I've kind of directed my whole life. I became an engineer and a fighter pilot and a test pilot to try and gain the skills to maybe someday do this. And now I'm doing my absolute best to help people see that, to help us understand where we are kind of philosophically and historically in our increased human understanding of where we do lie in the universe.
Right.
Those are great big words for a lab technician on a space station.
I know,
but I definitely get a sense of that all the time.
It's inspiring to hear. Let me go back to a moment. You've tested many airplanes. You've been a test pilot, which is like the utmost of example of courage, in that you're flying something unknown and you don't know what characteristics it's going to have. How do you deal with the fear, which is also applicable to going up into space and returning, which is perhaps even more fearful?
I read somewhere that you always knew your lines whenever you had a job in the acting profession. I have tried to always know my lines, whether it was as a fighter pilot or as an astronaut or as a test pilot. And the way I deal with fear is I try to define what it is that's scaring me. And what I'm scared most of is not knowing what to do next. You know, to be struck dumb on stage, or to be responsible for a vehicle and not know the right actions to take with my hands or with the spaceship. And so I spent almost my entire adult life making sure that I knew my lines, that when the Soyuz spaceship, which I helped fly up here, I spent years, of course, learning to speak Russian and then learning to fly that spaceship. And even though it flew itself basically flawlessly up here, no matter what happened, Roman Romanenko and I were ready to jump in and fly it and take over and do it all manually and fly it home. And that's a terrifying thing initially, but after years of training where you practice everything right down to the nth detail, so you know you have the confidence that comes with that, then the fear diminishes. It feels like you're on the crest of a wave of ability, and that really diminishes fear.
You've poised that perfectly as an actor who is fearful of the audience, but as long as you practice enough, you learn what to expect. The fear comes from something unexpected happening, like forgetting your words or an audience reaction that's unexpected. In my case, your face flushes and you get a sheen of flop sweat. In your case, you burn up. It's a little different.
Yeah, well, in both cases, you go down in flames, but one's figurative and one is not. But my wife, Bill, my wife is actually, when people ask her if she's scared of what I do for a living, as you say, prior to this, I was a test pilot. That was a much more risky profession. I basically lost one good friend a year for the whole time that I was a professional high-performance pilot. And so, yes, this job has risk and a level that is fairly high, but there are lots of professions on Earth that have a lot of risk. The people, firemen and soldiers, and some of the professions on Earth, and I respect them all for them understanding their job, really applying themselves, and professionally getting their particular piece of work done in the world.
Well, there's another risk involved here as well. You're up there for 6 months. That's a long time to be away, is it not?
It is. We have pretty good communications. Think of what you and I are doing right now. You know, you think about the stuff that was portrayed on television 40 years ago of people with a small handheld device standing on the surface of a planet talking to someone effortlessly who is orbiting that planet. That's what you and I are doing right now. And so I can do the same with my friends and family. I can talk to them pretty much every day. And So it's not that much different than just being on a long business trip. And training as an International Space Station astronaut takes you all around the world for years. So in truth, it's a 4 or 5 year period, of which 5 or 6 months you're in orbit. But with the level of technology we have right now, it removes a lot of the sense of remoteness to it. So it's we're busy, happy, hardworking, and we still have communication with the world.
That's wonderful to hear, Chris. I'm getting a little nudging that we're running over time. So many questions about the future of space and the Mars mission and all. I would look forward to another time to speak to you in great depth and find out the larger implications of the questions that I've so briefly been able to ask you.
You know, those scenes when you were in Boston Legal where at the end of the show and you sit out sort of on the veranda or the balcony and maybe over a cigar and a whiskey and talk of life. You ought to come to my cottage and sit on a porch. I would love the chance to talk with you about this and compare notes. This is a fabulous experience.
Northern Ontario is one of my favorite places. I'll bet you have a cottage up there.
Yeah, we have an Ontario cottage, and yeah, you ought to come visit. It's a great place to think about the world and watch satellites go over and really reflect on where we are.
I know
we were short on time.
I know the area. It's a pleasure, Chris. I look forward to meeting you in person and sitting down with a whiskey and a cigar.
All right, very nice talking with you. Thanks very much, and all the best.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes your conversation with Mr. Shatner. Please stand by for a voice check from CSA headquarters.
Hello.
Greetings, Chris. It's Jeremy here with you at our home, the Canadian Space Agency. How do you hear me? I'll take that as a yes.
Jeremy, I have you loud and clear. Great to hear your voice, and hello to everybody in Saint-Hubert. Can you hear me okay?
We've got you loud and clear too, Chris. We've got a number of questions here for you. We're going to get started with that, Chris. But before we do that, I just wanted to pass along some words on behalf of the agency. We're so incredibly proud of what you've been doing on behalf of Canada up there, and we're following you along every step of the way. So keep up the great work. And we really enjoyed listening to you this morning. So over to a couple questions.
Bonjour, Gilles Couture, enseignant en 5e année. Mes élèves et moi aimerions savoir comment contrôlez-vous la qualité de l'air à bord de l'ISS?
La qualité de l'atmosphère, oui, et pour les élèves aussi, oui, c'est absolument un problème. Et on manque ici, dans la station, on manque des plantes, des arbres, et donc il n'y a pas de système naturel pour ça. Donc c'est peut-être le même comme dans un sous-marin, un vaisseau sous-marin. Nous avons les systèmes pour prendre les chimiques de l'atmosphère comme le CO2 ou le CO aussi, les gaz qui ne sont pas bons pour la santé. Il y a des systèmes pour filtrer ça et pour rafraîchir ça. Aussi, on prend de l'oxygène de l'eau et de l'urine ici pour reprendre de l'oxygène pour notre santé. Et chaque vaisseau spatial qui arrive apporte une quantité d'oxygène et de nitrogène. Et avec ça, nous avons une atmosphère qui ressemble absolument à l'atmosphère sous Terre et bonne pour la santé, avec aucun problème. Et depuis combien d'années déjà? 11-12 ans déjà, nous avons gardé la santé bien pour l'équipage ici dans la station et pour les prochaines, pour Jeremy après quelques années dans l'avenir aussi. Donc ça marche très bien.
Merci.
Hi Chris, this is Ryan Caverly. My question is, considering the recent success of the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, do you think that the private sector will play a greater role in the development of Canadian space technology?
Oh, the private sector has always played the biggest role in Canadian space technology. ComDev and SPAR and MDR, MDA, and Neptech and all those companies, they've always been private sector companies. The real question is who's the customer? And to be able to, of course, sell at the Canadian Space Agency and through the government, which is the big purchaser in the United States too, where we're headed. We're sort of like in the railroad days, building the Trans-Canada Railway or building the airports, building the infrastructure so that then businesses can open. We're still in that stage. The biggest customer is still the government. But where SpaceX is headed, where we're all headed, that's where we ought to be going. And eventually, of course, it will pay off for Canadian private sector even more so. But it's a long process. It's not easy to get here.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Hi, Chris. I'm Rob from Toronto. You've been doing a great job connecting with a lot of people worldwide through social media and other means like this event today. What's the number one message that you really want people to take away from your mission in space?
You know, people always ask, what's it like in space and what's your favorite thing? The favorite thing is looking out the window. And that's not just because it's pretty. It's because it's fundamental to your soul to see the world this way. To be able to just, you know, when I was waiting for this to start, you can't help but go to the window and look and think about where we are. And my fundamental goal is to get people, as best as I can, to be able to see the world that way, to see it as one small place, one bubble of air that keeps us all alive, that we're responsible for, and just how close we are to each other. And it's a perspective that is healthy for us as a species, and it's one that we are very privileged to see, and I'm doing my very best to let everybody see that as clearly as I can.
You're doing a great job of it. Thank you.
Hey Chris, it's Katrina from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. We all say hi. Astro YYZ here. Anyway, as an amateur astronomer, I'm interested in knowing what astronomical objects can be seen from the ISS, given you have so many lights around you, lights and machines. And is there anywhere dark you can go on station where you can look out and really get dark adapted and see what's out there?
Yes, sort of like a little kid leaving home. Most of our glances are back towards Mother Earth, but we do have windows that face the rest of the universe. And I spent some time looking at some actually yesterday, looking at one yesterday, and remarking on actually just your question that the sky is almost white with the light of the universe, with the uncountable number of stars. But it has a lot of variation to it, even just with the naked eye, when we're in the shade of the Earth, so we can really see it. You can see the whole dark sections where there's dark matter or dust or whatever it is that's between us and the rest of the universe. You can see the gradations of it, like looking into the deepest ocean. And you can see very bright spots. You can't see the constellations because the sky is just so alive with stars. It turns everyone into an amateur astronomer to be able to see the sky this way. I hope you get a chance someday to come up and just let it fill your head through your eyeballs. It's a wonderful sight.
Me too. Thank you.
Hi, Chris. My name's Jennifer Nichols. I'm an elementary school teacher. And the question I have for you today is, being in a position that so much attention is focused on you and what you have achieved on your career so far, what message you would like to give to the people down here or the students down here that can maybe see their dreams but don't have the self-confidence to follow them?
Yeah, you know, I read somewhere once an interview with Sir Paul McCartney of the Beatles, and he said that he feels insecure sometimes. He feels a lack of confidence sometimes. And he said to himself, gosh, if I feel that way, everybody must feel that way. And I really took something away from that. I thought, if one of the Beatles occasionally doesn't feel confident, doesn't have self-confidence, then that's universal. Everybody feels that way. And it's really only with each individual step of accomplishment that you start to build a sense of confidence in your own abilities. When I decided to be an astronaut, I had virtually no skills. I was 9 years old. But I thought, hey, I'm only 9. I'm not supposed to have very many skills yet, but I'm going to start working on it. I want to someday live on a space station. I want to command a spaceship. What do I do? How do I get there? And so I just every day started thinking about, well, how do I get there? What do I have to do? Well, I need to do well in middle school. I need to do well in high school. I need to understand what's going on. I need to learn to scuba dive. I need to not let my body get fat. I need to decide what I'm going to watch and read and just start turning myself into who I want to be. And with each one of those steps, learning to fly through the Air Cadets, each one of those little levels of accomplishment, I used to race downhill on various teams. With every small success comes a little bit of self-confidence and the things that you can accomplish, so that then when you're faced with a problem that's new to you, you can look at it and go, gosh, I don't know how to do that, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to figure it out. And I treat everything the same way, whether it's learning to operate a camera like this one, which I'm not really all that good at, but I've learned well enough to be able to take some very good-looking pictures of the world, or to fly a spaceship, or to, tomorrow I'm recording a song with, or playing a song with Ed Robertson and the Bare Naked Ladies. That's a pretty daunting thing, and those guys scare anybody, but you practice, and you learn, and you prepare, and you think about it, and you visualize. And it's amazing if you just take one little step of self-improvement at a time, where it can lead you and how much confidence it can give you.
Thank you. Hi, Chris. My name's Laura Austin from Sarnia, Ontario. And I was wondering if fractures or wounds heal faster in zero gravity.
Boy, I hope we never find out. You know, living up here is quite different. It's a very sterile environment. I read somewhere that you're never more, on the surface of the Earth, you're never more than 10 feet away from a spider. Just if you count the number of spiders around. But I think on space station, I think the nearest spider is 400 kilometers away. We have to live in a very sterile environment up here. And for whatever reason, it changes our body's physiology, not just bone density and muscle strength, but also our immune system. Our immune system tends to depress a little, and we don't load our bones up as heavily because, as you can see, everything just floats. I don't even have to hold my head up. My head is floating on top of my neck. So we haven't broken a major bone up here, but my guess is they would heal more slowly, just because they're not subject to all of the regular stressors that help our bodies be tough and strong, and that we've evolved to over the last, however many million years. This is almost like trying to recover from something while you're floating in gelatin or maybe on a waterbed. And even though some things may look like they're happening quicker, whether they'll get that toughness and that tenacity and that interwoven strength that we need in order to stay healthy on Earth, I'm not sure. But we work really hard not to have any major wounds or to break our bones. I don't want to up here.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, that's going to be our last question. I think your break is over. It's time for you to get back to work. I know you got a lot to do today. One big thank you to you from all of us here. We really appreciate it. And really, we only have one other word to describe what you're doing, and that's amazing. All the best to you. We'll talk to you again.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. Let me just jump in before people applaud here. Let me just say that I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions if there were more, but Jeremy is one of our crew support astronauts. I've known Jeremy, for over a decade. He's immensely capable and qualified, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer your questions. And thank you very much, Jeremy, for coming all the way up to host today and for taking care of the visitors to the Space Agency. It's an amazing place, the Canadian Space Agency. It makes this possible. And so we take a lot of pride in it, and have a good look around today, everybody. Thanks a lot, Jeremy. Hi to everybody at the Space Agency, and I need to get back to work. Bye-bye.
Fellas, this is Swag.
No questions. I'm here for Kevin.
All right.
All right.
In the United States. it would not make a dent on carbon dioxide production. You'd have
Okay,
to
now
like-
we're going to deal with the carbon dioxide thing, right?
Right,
Okay,
which is
that's
also a problem, and also by the year 2020, 2030 will, of course, affect the food chain and affect lifestyles on the planet.
Yeah.
The United States, of course, we have a gigantic food basket. The bread basket, Kansas, the wheat belt, the corn belt. That has been one of the main reasons why we can thumb our noses at the Soviets, because we have this gigantic bread basket.
Yeah.
By the year 2020, there may not be a bread basket. It may be a dust bowl like it was in the 1930s. California, one of the largest bread baskets on the planet, could be wiped out as an agricultural center. Cities like New York City could be under 10 feet of water.
Yeah.
You realize the studio that we're in right now could be under 4 feet of water is the projection for New York City.
Well, not us because we're on the fourth floor.
We're on the fourth floor. However, the bottom
Yeah,
floor
yeah.
may have 4 feet more of water.
Yeah,
New York
yeah.
City being right
Yeah,
at
no,
sea
I understand.
level.
Yeah,
And,
I understand.
New Orleans is actually, parts of New Orleans is below sea level. You're talking about coastal cities being flooded like San Francisco if the polar ice caps begin to melt.
Long have we watched the scourge of humanity spreading through space, daring to encroach upon our birthright. At last the time has come to wipe them from the galaxy! Take your battle stations!
We don't want no war no more. Bring our boys home to our shores. We don't want big government or the Bilderberg group that pays for it.
Call me crazy. One more time.
The system broken, the schools closed, the prisons open. We ain't got nothing to lose, motherfucker, we rollin'. Motherfucker, we rollin'. With some light-skinned girls and some Kelly Rollins. In this white man world, we the ones chosen. So good night, cool world, I see you in the morning. I see you in the morning.
But apart from the language, culture, border checks, we're all in this together.
Hey everybody, it's me, your good friend, the Obama supporter.
Think this? No. Yeah. There's no, because I poured it over half of what's in there, now I got 1.5.
Okay, Ross, what is that?
Death of a Corvette. Oh.
The elixir? That number 9?
Oh. That's government issue.
Good.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country.
Hey everybody, it's me, your good friend, the Obama supporter.
And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
In 1913, the money power of the country was taken away from the people by constitutional privilege. It belongs with the Congress, but it was given up in the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express, but yet it has the power to determine the direction of use of money in our economy. If we could take that power back and put the Federal Reserve under Treasury, we start to be in a position of being able to control monetary policy on behalf of the United States people.
About, if there's another trouble spot, and this is one of the things, like we're spread out very thinly, suppose North Korea makes a move, this or that or whatever, but we create these trouble spots. This is our game. We arm people to the teeth, and then we go bomb them and sell them new armament again and build their cities. Things like Halliburton and Union Carbide and all these, the ownership class in this country. This country is owned by 800 or 900 people who run everything, do everything, control everything. They have this guy, Clinton gets in, fine, we can deal with him. Kerry gets in, fine, we can deal with him. It's just in the wind. It's a little reed like this. It's all one big ownership class, and they,
You remove the danger and the pain of childbearing. Danger and pain are a part of life. You try and run from them, you're running from yourself. Can you fly that thing?
Not yet.
Operator.
Tank, I need a pilot program for a B-212 helicopter.
Now we'll hear from Mr. William K. Black, Associate Professor of Economics and Law, the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law. Mr. Black.
Committee, thank you. You asked earlier for a stern regulator. You have one now in front of you. And we need to be blunt. And you haven't heard much bluntness in hours of testimony. We stopped a non-prime crisis before it became a crisis in 1991 by supervisory actions. We did it so effectively that people have forgotten it even existed, even though it caused several $100 million in losses, but none to the taxpayers. We did it by preemptive litigation and by supervision. We broke a raging epidemic of accounting control fraud without new legislation in the period 1984 through 1986. Legislation would have been helpful. We sought legislation, but we didn't get it. And we were able to stop that because we didn't simply continue business as usual.
Government destroys jobs, the market creates jobs. So the government isn't going to be expected to create the jobs. They have to change the environment. But you can't do that unless you understand where the depression, recessions come from. And you can't understand that unless you know where the bubbles come from. I've been arguing this case for 20 years and warning about bubbles and housing bubbles and NASDAQ bubbles, and a lot of other economists have been doing the same thing. Until we understand that, you can't solve the problem. You have to deal with the Federal Reserve System. You have to deal with free markets, and you have to deal with the tax program and the regulatory system. Then you can get your jobs, because the people will create the jobs, not the government.
Our national debt up $5 trillion.
Call me crazy. One more time.
Our national debt up $5 trillion.
And I think that Goldman has very shrewdly positioned themselves with the Democrats, because the Democrats typically, like many NGOs that I've run into, they seem to have a complete inability to comprehend these issues of markets and finance and how it relates to social justice.
I love it.
Like sharks on a tuna, folks with empty gas tanks descended on this Raceway gas station.
I just know that we just got busy, honestly.
Word spread quickly that premium gas here was 27 cents a gallon.
Yeehaw! I had a quarter of a tank and I got 16.11 gallons of gas.
For $4.50.
$4.50.
How much we get? We got 42 gallons.
For how much?
For $7.22.
Like a scene out of the 1970s, cars began to line up. Phone calls and text messages brought more and more people.
I just looked down the street and I saw this commotion, and I saw the cops and everything. I was like, what's going on, dudes? And they were like, 27 cents. I was like, what?
Pull up a little bit. Pull up a little.
It got so chaotic, Fort Worth police were called in for traffic control.
Pull up. No, you're not pulling in.
G. Smith couldn't drive in, so he brought as many portable tanks as he could find.
It's still gas. We'll be pouring in a can of
With oil prices soaring and fuel protests spreading across the globe, it almost sounds too good to be true. A car that runs on nothing but water. And all kinds of water will do. River, rain or sea, they all make this car mobile. Even tea works. Japanese company DejaB unveiled the eco-friendly vehicle in Osaka. Once water is poured into the car's tank, an energy generator takes hydrogen from the water, releasing electrons that power the car.
The main characteristic of this car is that no external input is needed. The car will continue to run for as long as you have a bottle of water inside for you to add from time to time.
According to DejaB, a litre of water will keep the car running at a speed of 80 kilometers for around an hour. The company hopes to go into mass production with a Japanese manufacturer, with car users around the world looking for alternative fuels to power their vehicles. DejaB may well have the solution they've been looking for. Michelle Kalala-Puri, Reuters.
So under the Democrats, we also saw the repeal of Glass-Steagall.
Glass-Steagall said there's an inherent conflict of interest between the commercial banking side, which is the lending side, and the investment banking side, which is taking an ownership position. And we have to end this conflict of interest by separating these two entities. You can have investment banks and you can have commercial banks, but they have to be separate.
Do you think that the repeal of Glass-Steagall was a tragic mistake?
No, I don't think so.
The First Amendment is the source of the 5 most important civil rights guarantees.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Inspector Coleman, you're the Inspector General for the Federal Reserve, right? Okay.
That's correct.
Have you done any investigations concerning the Federal Reserve's role in deciding not to save Lehman Brothers, which led to shockwaves that went through the entire financial system?
In that particular area, I don't generally comment on specific investigations, but we do not currently have an investigation in that particular area.
Thanks for the call. Jim Hines, one of our regular viewers, saying, "Hey America, if you want a candidate with viable plans who does not flip-flop, you will support and vote for Mitt Romney." 2 headlines from the Washington Examiner first.
Well, I understand that, but we're talking about events that started unfolding 8 months ago. Have you reached any conclusions about the Fed expanding its balance sheet by over $1 trillion since last September?
We have not yet reached any conclusions.
Do you know who received that money?
We're in the process right now of doing our review, and
Right, but you're the Inspector General. My question to you specifically is, do you know who received that $1 trillion plus that the Fed extended and put on its balance sheet since last September? Do you know the identity of the recipients?
I do not know. We have not looked at that specific area.
So, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you,
because you'll only be wasting your breath. Today, the Republic is nothing but a growing fascist police state, dressed deceptively in a gown of democracy, merely to titillate, loot, and enslave you. A gown generously provided by this show's sponsor, Benito Armani. Tale of a world dictator since 1931. Benito Armani fashions available at fine FEMA camps everywhere. If you don't know where they are, no worries. Very soon, they'll find you.
At Thornton Gifts, we believe speed is essential.
I guess the test will tell.
What about Bloomberg's report that there are trillions of dollars in off-balance sheets transactions that the Federal Reserve has entered into since last September. Are you familiar with those off-balance sheet transactions?
I guess the test will tell.
Nevertheless, in our lending facilities project, for example, we are looking at the board's oversight over the program and to the extent that extends out to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
Well, I have a copy of the Inspector General Act here in front of me, and it says, among other things, that it's your responsibility to conduct and supervise audits and investigations relating to the programs and operations of your agency.
That's correct.
So I'm asking you if your agency has, in fact, according to Bloomberg, extended $9 trillion in credit, which, by the way, works out to $30,000 for every single man, woman, and child in this country. I'd like to know, if you're not responsible for investigating that, who is?
Do you like your voice? Do I like my voice?
We have responsibility for the Federal Reserve's programs and operations, audits, to conduct audits and investigations in that area.
Our national debt up $5 trillion.
One problem is that the language that people use when they're trying to describe their inventions is not the language that I as a scientist am used to, and so I have to translate it, if you like, into a way that I can begin to understand what they're trying to say.
In terms of who's responsible for investigating, would you mind repeating the question one more time?
Now total $9 trillion in the last 8 months.
I'll have to look specifically at that Bloomberg article. I'm not, I don't know if I have actually seen that particular one.
That's not the point.
We're still in the process of conducting that review. Until we actually, go out and gather the information, I'm not in a position to really respond to the specific question.
Do you like your voice? Do I like my voice? I'll be completely honest. I think my voice is okay. I like the feeling that I get when I sing. I would love to have a voice like Christina.
Words can't bring me down.
I would love to have a voice like Whitney Houston. In the Zone is probably the one song that really states where I'm at.
I wanna get in the zone.
Doing what I love to do and dancing.
I'ma take it on. I'ma take it on.
And being in the zone.
You tell them, Brittany.
Motherfucker, I'm ill.
National Freedom Day is here, February 1, in honor of Lincoln's freeing the slaves. But, oh, what really happened on that day? Seems just like they found another loophole on how to enslave. Why have one debtor when you can have thousands? Oh yes, what a Merlin trick this has been. Heads still spin today on this freedom click. Some just beg to be chipped, so it's 3-2-1 contact in the land of freedom oil slicks. Mulligan stew, where a flower meets a blaster, and the only real choice that is given is just which disaster. yes, Lincoln freed you to be dumb. Take it from this mathematician, 1 degree shy of a magician. I stayed here and now, a slave of many masters. We are so many, so make no mistake. Never talk to the jakes, use your minds to escape. Impending disasters are likely fake. Why would I deny you the view from atop this beautiful cake? Such an amazing time and place. Put a kiss for me on the face of beautiful liberty. Till we meet again, I'm DejaB.
Our government has been destroying our resources, our lands, for 524 years now. Unfortunately, the earth does not have her own voice, and she cannot stand up for herself. So it's our job to give her that voice and speak up and say no more.
That's my girl, that's my girl, that's my girl. She's mine, that's my girl. She's all mine, that's my girl. That's my ain't she a beauty? Most magnificent thing I've ever seen. This lovely lady from my dreams. I say hiya hookah when I'm backstage, vicious as Tyson in a rage. But she don't dig that, so be best behave. No, seriously, you need to mask that shit with sage. What, you think it was my turn to jump on the grenade? You better get real. Titanic's promenade. Put on your vest, Jesus saves. Looks to me like you just got played. Like a shake from a California mountain, she moves me. That's my girl, ain't she a beauty? I could spend a day, a week, to a century getting lost in those eyes. She's that feeling you get when you just found out you survived. So good to be alive, so when you're next to her, you know you just arrived. She's mine, that's my girl. She's all mine. That's the feeling I love, so carefree, this little beautiful dove. Beyond the mountains and through the sands of time, DejaB will be there for you in between my rhymes. Rest assured, little angel, we will escape this grind. As sure as the poison fruit will dangle, there will be another to pay the fine. That's my girl, ain't she a beauty? She's so beautiful. And now that you know and see, the one I'm after is busy out writing up a new chapter. Heaven knows I bitch too much is high to the rafters, but looks and deception go hand in hand. Knew that from inception, still doesn't change the fact that she's the peak of human perfection. I like what I see, I hope you brought protection. I'm looking at you, miss. See, now is the time to make that connection. That's my girl. She's all mine, that's my girl. That's my girl. That's my girl. That's my girl. She's mine. That's my
Ron Paul's very dedicated supporters.
Just bang.
Now it's time for truth.
This guy over here has an automatic weapon with his finger near the trigger. And people who were, peacefully disrupting construction said that, law enforcement came and, basically held them at gunpoint with automatic weapons. So yeah, we've got Morton County Sheriffs out here. This is Mercer County Sheriff's Department. Most of these more militarized riot police are state troopers from the North Dakota Highway Patrol. So this morning, a bunch of people came in and locked themselves to, right here is a construction site where they're putting the Dakota Access Pipeline in the ground. Some time went on, and then, about this group of, dozens of state troopers in riot gear showed up. They told everyone, we were over here. They told everyone over here, don't trespass over here. You'll be arrested if you trespass. We've stayed over here in the time since that order was given. But yeah, so that is what the pipeline looks like, folks. It's right there. It's definitely, construction has not stopped on the Dakota Access Pipeline, except in a very small contested area. So they're pointing at everyone with cameras saying, he's going, she's going. So it seems like they're targeting media for arrest. We might be getting arrested here.
Thank you. Welcome to Command College. You've just embarked on the most challenging course that the Academy has to offer, and also the most rewarding. It is often said that command school cadets are the best of the best, and it's also said that I commanded the best ship and the best crew. Truth is, there's no such thing as the best. One ship may be brand new, state-of-the-art, but it also has countless bugs to work out. Another ship may be 100 years old and shake like a rattle, but the bugs are long gone, and that's why she's 100 years old. Same goes for your crew. They may be technical wizards, but if they can't work as a team, their skills are useless to you. When you meet your crew, you'll find 1,000 abilities and talents and flaws all crackling against each other. And that's where you come in. Those of you who succeed in building a team will be among the elite few to take us to the stars. Good luck, fair weather, and never forget that risk is your business.
Hi guys, Real Neo here. DejaB, Brian Thornton. We are heading to North Dakota. Got the cannabis loaded up, leaving the race car. But this will be the first of many videos that we'll be putting up about our trip. We're loading up right now and getting up a lot more supplies. As you can see, we've been busy making buttons. Lots of cool buttons. Lots of cool stuff. Standing rock. We've done all kinds. So be sure to like and sub. I'm going to put in our GoFundMe link with this video. Please give us some help. Got a long way to go and a lot of work to do. Thank you very much for your time. It's live from the cannabis. DejaB out.
Let's get together.
here in North Dakota, right here, you have a lot of riot police. People have shut down the pipeline for between an hour and a half to 2 hours ago.
Breaking. Riot police begin mass arrests at Dakota Access Pipeline. FB censors video at a critical moment of our coverage of a Dakota Access Pipeline direct action today. Facebook's automated censorship system blocked our video URL shortly before 2 of our journalists were arrested on site. As we started to cover today's direct action, our collective members immediately noticed that the full live stream was being blocked from Facebook. Posts and comments with the URL both immediately triggered pop-up security alerts. We tried putting the same URL through bit.ly shortening, and that official Unicorn Riot page post was deleted by Facebook within a few minutes. Finally, we went with sharing our live channel URL on our own website, which had the embed included on it. We also verified that the Facebook debugger warned that our live video URL violated community standards. Both Facebook and law enforcement acted to block our media distribution today, but we will not let them stop our mission to amplify the voices of people who might otherwise go unheard, and broadcast the stories that might otherwise go untold. Also, as one member of the collective, I should point out it is obviously concerning when a large media conglomerate blocks URLs to competing video platforms. A surveillance plane was also seen patrolling the protest site, reports Unicorn Riot. Anti-Media has reached out to Morton County Sheriff's Department for comment and will update this story if they respond.
We will stop it. You see that eagle grabbing a pipeline by the neck? That's the Dakota Access Pipeline, the black snake, being taken down by a Native American eagle.
Let's go behind the banner. And last November, President Obama stood on a podium at the White House and canceled the permit for the Keystone Pipeline. Time has come again.
That's not hyperbole. Water is white. Oil is not hyperbole. What is oil? Oil is some stuff that's been dead for millions and millions of years. Oil has been dead for 60 million years. Coal has been dead for 150 million years. Somebody got a brainstorm to go and dig up a bunch of dead stuff and then burn it. Burn it in their engines, burn it in their power plants. And now they're shocked. They're shocked at having pulled death out of the ground. We now have death in the lungs of our children in the form of asthma. And we now have death on our oceans in the form of oil spills. And we now have death from the skies in the form of climate chaos. What did you think was going to happen when you started digging up all this death? What did you think was going to happen?
To the Standing Rock Reservation because they deemed that the population of Bismarck was way too risky. And they said our reservation, they put it up for sacrifice. They said our people were willing to be sacrificed.
No! No! No!
They said our children.
By other speakers is the issue of water. And there are those who believe that in the future, the wars that will be fought on this planet will not be over oil, they will be over water. We've got to protect our water resources. We cannot allow our drinking water to be poisoned so that a handful of fossil fuel companies can make even more in profits.
Democracy Now!'s coverage in North Dakota over Labor Day weekend of the Native American-led protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline. On Saturday, September 3rd, Democracy Now! Filmed security guards working for the Dakota Access Pipeline Company using dogs and pepper spray to attack protesters.
these people are just threatening all of us with these dogs. And that woman over there, she was charging him and it bit somebody right in the face.
The dog has blood in its nose and its mouth.
And she's still standing here threatening you.
Why are you letting her dog go after the protesters? It's covered in blood. Democracy Now!'s video report went viral online. Our footage was rebroadcast on many outlets, including CBS, NBC, NPR.org, CNN, MSNBC, and Huffington Post. Also charged was Cody Hall for his alleged presence at the September 3rd land defense action and for a subsequent protest on September 6th. Hall is considered a lead organizer in the movement against the Dakota Access Pipeline and was arrested at one of the checkpoints that have been erected by North Dakota authorities to restrict access to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation and the growing pipeline opposition camps. Hall was denied bail and remained in jail throughout the weekend. Hall's attorneys and several others we spoke to confirmed it's highly unusual for a defendant charged with misdemeanor trespass to be jailed and denied bail. According to the complaint, the charges are based on a viewing of Democracy Now!'s video report of the incident conducted by the North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation. Special Agent Lindsay Wohl's sworn affidavit states that I was there as a journalist. Wohl wrote, quote, Amy Goodman can be seen on the video identifying herself and interviewing protesters about their involvement in the protest, unquote. The criminal complaint was approved by Assistant State's Attorney for Morton County, Gabrielle J. Goder. To date, none of the private security personnel shown in the video, both assaulting protesters and commanding their dogs to attack them, have been charged or arrested. Democracy Now! Is consulting with attorneys in North Dakota as well as at the Center for Constitutional Rights. CCR Legal Director Bahar Azmi said, quote, this is clearly a violation of the First Amendment, an attempt to repress this important political movement by silencing media coverage, unquote.
Texas company commits to controversial Dakota Access Pipeline. A group from the Saginaw Chippewa Reservation in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, wait to raise the reservation's flag after entering an encampment where hundreds of protesters have gathered on the banks of the Cannonball River to stop construction of the Energy Transfer Partners Dakota Access Oil Pipeline near the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in Cannonball, North Dakota. Energy Transfer Partners CEO Kelsey Warren said in a memo to employees that the four-state, 1,172-mile project is nearly 60% complete and that concerns about the pipeline's impact on the local water supply are unfounded. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe and others argue the project will impact drinking water for thousands of tribal members and millions downstream. I am confident that as long as the government ultimately decides the fate of the project based on science and engineering, the Dakota Access Pipeline will become operational. So we will continue to obey the rules and trust the process, he wrote. Standing Rock Tribal Chairman Dave Archambault said he and the thousands of others who have gathered at an encampment in southern North Dakota to protest won't budge. People are still coming down here and are committed to stopping the project, he said. Warren's memo, which was released to some media outlets, is the first time in months the company has provided significant details of the project. The company often has ignored requests for comment from the Associated Press. Our corporate mindset has long been to keep our head down and do our work, his memo said. It has not been my preference to engage in a media PR battle. However, misinformation has dominated the news, so we will work to communicate with the government and media more clearly in the days to come. The Standing Rock Sioux is challenging the Army Corps of Engineers' decision to grant about 200 permits at water crossings for pipeline, which goes through the Dakotas and Iowa to Illinois. The tribe says the project will disturb sacred sites and impact drinking water. Wakaya Eagleman of the Sikongu Lakota told CBS News they just came in and destroyed it. Eagleman also blamed federal authorities for instigating violence during the protests. Yeah, you know they instigated the whole situation. They came to use their dogs on my people, Wakaya said. They came and mazed us. So what else are we supposed to do? We ain't going to stand and let them do this anymore. Energy Transfer Partners disputes the claims of Native Americans. The tribe's effort to temporarily block construction near its reservation on the North Dakota-South Dakota border was denied by U.S. District Judge James Boasberg on Friday. But minutes later, federal officials ordered a temporary halt to construction on Army Corps land around and underneath Lake Awe, one of 6 reservoirs on the Missouri River. 3 federal agencies also asked ETP for a voluntary pause in work for 20 miles, 32 kilometers, on either side of Lake Awe. The federal department said the case highlighted the need for a serious discussion about nationwide reforms with respect to considering tribes' views on these types of infrastructure projects. Archambault said the consultations were one-sided and that they met with us after their plans were already made.
I think all you need is a small taste of success, and you will find it suits you.
They're gathering. They're sending a message to the world that the American democracy system is a lie. They have no honor. None. All your ancestors, as well as mine, fought and paid for that right in blood. That's what them stripes on that flag represent. Yeah. Well, when you wake up, we're going to hate you for the 6 million Indians your ancestors slaughtered. Yet we joined you in wars and made this country great. And this is how you repay us. You violate our treaties, desecrate our graveland. For what? Corporate entities who want to get rich. Then you will suffer. All of you will suffer. Not just us. You will suffer. Your children will suffer. When the corporate entities control the water in the world and you have to pay for it. There's signs of it now with the bottled water. Can you afford that? I don't think so. Shame on this country. Shame on the money mongers who destroy the earth for profit. Shame on them all. Put this pipe in the ground. Have they stole from you? Your hard-earned tax dollars. Maybe somebody should audit the United States government. I served in that armed forces in Vietnam. I don't hate you. I know you have a job to do. Nobody's hating you. You have a job to do. We just ask no violence. Don't hurt anybody. We won't hurt you. We're assembling with the Constitution that we spilled blood on foreign soil to uphold gives us that right to protest and assemble. Some of your uncles and grandparents paid the ultimate price, never came back for that lie. If this be real, if this Constitution is real, then let justice and freedom ring, not lies. Not lies. We're tired of the lies. We're tired of the broken treaties, broken promises. We're trying to protect our water. Sacred to us. Understand that much. We're not going to let a pipeline go under the Missouri River. It's going to stop here. Or the whole world will know that America is nothing but a bunch of corporate thieves and liars. That they don't believe in that high axiom of liberty and justice, due process and equality, and the right to protest and assemble. The whole world will know that it's a lie. This is the age of social media. We can't be held back by yellow journalism. We can't be held back by corporate entities who control the media. The world is watching what's happening here today. Every day we make a move, the world is watching. North Dakota will be on trial for lying, blocking off the road and denying people the right to assemble. People who have paid for this right in blood on foreign soil. Iraq, Iraqi freedom, Vietnam, World War II, World War I, Korea. Paid for in blood that right. Shame on anybody who denies that right to a man who lives in a country that is truly free. We proved it to the world that we can stand together, white, black, red, and yellow, and make this the greatest country in the world. But we can't stand back and watch lies being perpetuated. We can't do it. We're Americans too.
Haumitakuepe, Mioma Lakota. Hello, my relatives. What I have to say about myself is that I've been to prison, I've been a thief, I've been a doper, a dope dealer, and I've also gone to college. I'm an accountant and a computer programmer, as well as getting my doctorate in philosophy. I've been everywhere in the strata of white society. I've even hung around with multimillionaires when there were no billionaires. I am an Indian, American Indian. I prefer American Indian to anyone born in the Western Hemisphere is a Native American. I'm an Oglala Lakota from the Pine Ridge Sioux Indian Reservation, which is still designated in the Defense Department as prisoner of war camp number 44. You see, Indian people, we don't have any rights, any constitutional protections on the reservation whatsoever. No freedom of speech, no privacy, Well, you Americans are in the same boat. As far as being an American Indian and a Lakota, I also belong to the Republic of Lakota, because a significant portion of my people withdrew from the treaties we made with the federal government, the 1851 and the 1868 Sioux treaties and American treaties signed at Fort Laramie, which is now Wyoming, but that's in the Republic of Lakota. So when we withdrew from the treaties because of gross violations, according to the laws that the United States of America is signatory to, and we have a strategy for attaining our complete independence and a return for our land. I've written an autobiography, Russell Means, Where White Men Fear to Tread is the title. It's a very thick book, 550 pages, but I'm very proud. I've had 17 printings in 16 years. So people are interested in who we are. And it's actually a comprehensive history based on my family of our existence in the 20th century and the deprivations we went through and the trials and tribulations. And so if you really want to find out about us, read my book, and then you can go to research any place you want to. But you see, the sad thing in America is that we don't exist in the 20th century. You have to specialize in Indian education of some sort, anthropology, history, and then go and dig in the archives of wherever in order to find out anything about us in the 20th century. So there you have it. You know, the American people, for too long, have been an irresponsible, free people. And even generation to generation, as they've become less free, they don't recognize it. They have lost the ability of critical thought. In order to regain critical thought, all you have to do is read your Constitution and then look at the laws that govern you, especially from the federal perspective. It's unconscionable to allow your freedoms to be taken away decade after decade after decade, year after year. And I'm very proud of this, by the way. My nation, the Lakota, were the first nation to militarily defeat the United States of America on the field of battle. And that resulted in the 1868 Sioux Treaty. Be that as it may, what has happened after they economically forced us into these prisoner of war camps by destroying our food supply and our right of passage in our own land, they confined us to these, and then they began practicing and perfecting their colonial tactics. What has happened is now America, because of the irresponsibility of your forebears and the irresponsibility of yourselves, you are now on one huge Indian reservation. All policies were bred and born and birthed on an Indian reservation, and then exported to the world, and now comes back on the backs of the American people. You have a near-perfect document. In the words of Benjamin Franklin in 1744, to a collection of colonists discussing freedom, he said to them, and I quote, "If a nation to the north can form a near-perfect union that has endured for centuries, why cannot we form a more perfect union?" Unquote. So they're talking about the Iroquois Confederacy, and that's where the Constitution comes from. Because in 1988, on the eve of the 200-year anniversary of the Constitution, it was a unanimous thank you by the Congress of the United States. They sent in writing to the Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy, thanking them for their input into the Constitution and the formation of the United States of America. So you see, the Constitution is Indian law, and that's why I love it. You know, beginning in the 1840s, they start stripping away your freedoms by developing the corporation. You know, a piece of paper. A piece of paper. And then in the 1870s, of course, during Lincoln, when they declared martial law, and even after they ceased civil war, martial law continued on for another 3 or 4 years, when it was no need to. And you go on, but in the 1870s, that's when Congress started giving the banks the right to rule. And of course, you go on to 1913, and the beginning of the 20th century, that's when they officially gave away the power of our economy to the banks. You know? They can print the money for us. According to our Constitution, you should never allow, the people should never allow their money to be printed by someone else. Hello? So the history of the Indian and the history of the American have now come full circle and were intertwined in the dictatorial policies of those that control the monetary system of America. And they have done such a bad job of it that they're destroying themselves. It's ludicrous at best. What has happened in Indian policy, or I should say American policy now, is that because you don't have control of your money, the international community has refused to invest any more into the financial instruments of America because they know they're worthless, that the United States is too far in debt and cannot cover it. So consequently, they've refused to buy the bonds and the treasury notes, etc. At any rate, the Federal Reserve has been, for over a year, way over a year, been printing money when no one's buying the financial instruments of the United States. So what the Federal Reserve has been doing is buying those federal bonds and treasury notes and then printing more money. It's absolute suicide. And it's been proven from empire to empire that when you allow your human right, your individual rights to be usurped, that's when empire grows and could care less. I was growing up when this country, they started emptying this country. Around the 50s, the unions had become so powerful, they were about to form their own political party. They had shown during World War II how powerful they were in the vote for the presidency and the Congress. But they sat down with the bankers and the government around 1950, give or take a year, and they made a deal. The leaders of the unions made a deal with the leaders of America and sold out the unions. So when the people began to organize and gather and really have some power, it was negated. And it's been negated ever since. Ever since. You know, you have no privacy. None. You have no protections anymore. Now, I could be a smart aleck and say, how does it feel? Because I know how it feels living on a reservation, prisoner of war camp. Now, I can be an American, take my Social Security card and leave the reservation and be like the rest of you. You know, they welcome that because in America, they had forced relocation for Indian people back in the 50s. It was fostered under Truman, the relocation plan. And the man appointed to run that, the first man, he was the one who headed up the Japanese internment relocation program during World War II. So he went and headed up the relocation office for the American Indians, and I went on relocation twice. That's kind of a con job, but anyway, I made it out twice. And that's what they want to do, a diaspora, and therefore, guess whose land they're after? In our...
You mentioned in one of your last talks that petroleum wasn't what we thought it was, that it wasn't a fossil fuel, that it didn't come from fossil animal.
Yeah.
Is it just a mineral? Is it a mineral like any other mineral? Is that how it what would you say? What's the origin of
You see,
petroleum?
when they first found petroleum, because they were beginning to make motors and needed on axles of wheels on railroad trains and all that sort of thing, and remember trains started in the beginning of the 19th century, then oil went from just a lubricant to a fuel, and it made it valuable. And Rockefeller happened to be the smartest man in the business at the time, but he made most of his money, or much of it, off the transport of the petroleum as well as selling it. But one thing they realized was, because oil is putting a price on oil is like putting a price on a pail of water. You know, no initial cost. It's in the ground, and in those days they were, some of it almost what you'd call surface mining the oil. They didn't go down deep. So in order to get the price up, they hit on the idea that they would have to make it appear to be scarce. That after we take the next few barrels out, we're probably going to have to close as well, you know, that kind of thing. A very fortuitous event. In 1892, there was a convention in Geneva of scientists to determine what organic substances are. Well, the definition of organic is a substance with hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. And so it's usually a living substance, a tree. You analyze a dead tree, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen, and grass, and so on, living things. Animals, we are hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. So at this Geneva Convention, Rockefeller took advantage of sending some scientists over who said, oil, petroleum, is hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Therefore, it must be derived from the spoiling, the rotting of formerly living matter. And playing the game properly, when this scientific convention was over, they defined oil as the residue from formerly living matter. Well, that makes it a fossil fuel. I don't know why they decided to use the word fossil, but it says formerly living matter, it's fossil. Well, of course, today, and another thing we should know is that there has never been a fossil, a real fossil, found below 16,000 feet. And you can't argue at 16,000 as a level line because someplace the ground sinks and so on. But 16 is what the scientists say, 16,000. We mine oil, or we drill for oil, at 30,000, 33,000, 28,000 every day of the week. So right there we rule it out that it isn't fossil fuel. It's called fossil fuel for the minds of the public to feel that it is an asset that is running out, being depleted. We talk about depletion allowance, which is a lot of, you know. And actually, if you know the world's oil supply, you know that it is not going to run out for an awfully long time. It is the second most prevalent liquid on Earth. And we haven't begun to... Well, with all that background, you see, the people in charge of the petroleum business, for perfectly reasonable business things, just like any other man in the business, wants to keep his price as high as he can get away with. And the way to do is just say, well, there's no more. The last barrel is going to cost $1,000, and then it's all done. And they preach that stuff. What bothers me is that in geology books, it's in there. The geologists say it's a fossil fuel. Somehow they've been bought. I mean, I went to a 4-year federal staff energy seminar run by the government of the United States during the so-called energy crisis. I was the participant that represented the railroad industry. The airline industry was there. Every AA, administrative assistant of senators and congressmen, was there. The CIA was there. The Defense Department was there. The State Department was there. Sometimes sitting right in front of me in the row would be Henry Kissinger with his friend, the head of Department of Defense. That's too bad. I can't put the names with them. But anyway, people like that, top men in the government, sitting there listening to the Federal Staff Energy Seminar. Well, what this was doing is for 4 years, they were teaching a propaganda line to the leading people in this country, and therefore to the leading people in the world, when you include the Schlesingers, Kissinger and Schlesinger, among others. And the object of it was, as Kissinger used in his own terms when it was time for him to speak, to create a world price for oil. In other words, not 30 cents a gallon here and 90 cents a gallon there, but let's get a world price. That's their goal, and they're trying to do that for wheat and everything else. We don't realize what the controls are, whether it's oil or some of these other things. Almost everything today is being categorized at the highest price they can possibly make it go. And so calling petroleum a fossil fuel is the basis for this system with respect to petroleum. And I don't know if the name Arthur Kantrowitz rings any bell. Arthur Kantrowitz is the head of the Kantrowitz Labs set up by the AFCO company near Boston, Scientific Laboratories. And a great man in the scientific world. And Kantrowitz and I were sitting at a table at this seminar once, and the table happened to be all young college grad, PhD geologists. And so just to get a conversation started, I turned to Kantrowitz and I said, Arthur, what do you think about this foolishness of these speakers talking about fossil fuel? And it was kind of put up. He started laughing. He said, you know, that gets me. He said, I don't have a geology degree, but he had 1,000 other degrees. And he said, I don't understand. He said, you'd think that these heads, these other fellows at the table, we did it on purpose, start listening, you know. And he asked, he said, are you gentlemen? He says, you're here at the meeting. Are you gentlemen by any chance geologists? And one fellow, yes, I am. And the other, yeah. He said, well, why don't you tell me? He said, why is oil? You know, he went on like that. We brought the house down because nobody could argue with Kantrowitz. He like Einstein. People aren't going to. And he told him right there. He said, just drop it. But it's in all the books and in all the papers. But it started from that strange meeting in 1892, a scientific convention. I have a big, thick scientific encyclopedia put out by the Divan Ostrin Company that's about 15 years old now, but it has the whole story of the conference. It doesn't have the Rockefeller part, but it has the whole story of how they straightened out organic chemicals and how it was all figured, and they've got petroleum right in there.
Amazing. Amazing. So
these aren't accidental things, you see. There's a dollar sign behind almost everything.
We were seduced by the glamour of it all.
A rally in Bismarck, and look what's coming our way. We're here to pray. We're here to pray, you guys. We're here to pray for these guys.
forces moving in the air.
Away, or if the wind changes, you've got a flight path coming over your head, so suddenly the word cut is happening all the time.
Did you find that you were calling cut a lot? Because you're right, the plane noise is just everywhere, isn't it?
On Facebook, and now you're going to die.
The others don't want to talk about it because it scares them.
Have a good night, guys. You see it, baby? They don't lie. Let's go. They don't lie. They don't lie. They don't lie, tough guy.
Only thing of what you see is what you get, and you see me. I'm coming up and you come back.
That is the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish, not fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our independence day.
Thank you, Captain.
We have reached a landmark settlement with the nation's largest bank.